Before I start, I want to say thank you to everyone at 108 and for Jen for putting all of this together. It's been so easy to work with you all, and I really appreciate it. I want to thank my husband, who's not here today because he's at home with the kids. Over the past year, he has had to take on a lot of extra with the kids so that I could have the time to complete this work. Taking them to all of their activities and even taking them away like to Kansas for weekends so I could have like all day, every day to work. And so I appreciate that. And then all of my friends who have just encouraged me and supported me, who've let me like bounce ideas off of them and talk through a lot of the work, and also friends who showed up to help me install, provide snacks and drinks and all of those sorts of things. So I have like a really great community around me, and I really appreciate everybody. So I thought before we would walk around the gallery, I would just give you a little bit of background information. I've always been in art. I was an art kid. I went to art school. I taught 5 years. I taught art. And then when I had my first child, I decided to stay home a year. But then that year turned into 2 and 3, and I had a second child. During those times, it was really hard for me to make any work. I wasn't really making work, but I was thinking about it. When I was up in the night feeding babies for years, it seemed like I was always like taking notes. So I have hundreds and hundreds of notes in my phone of just sitting there like dreaming about things I want to make, putting down ideas, and I would think, oh, these are amazing. And then I would wake up in the morning and I'd open my notes and I'd have no idea what I was talking about. But a few of them maybe. So but I just was really missing making the work, and so I just started doing little things like I really like chalk pastels, and then I got into ink painting. But with little kids at home, it's really hard to like have the time to get out all your painting supplies and then paint and then pick up painting supplies. I just didn't have large amounts of time to work. And so I was really looking for something, and not anything to show, but just something for myself that I could create in those little pockets of time that I had. And so I started stitching on paper. I grew up in a house. My mother always was crocheting, and she could sew anything, and I just grew up around fiber. And so I thought, that's something I can do. I can just pick it up for a little bit of time, and then I can lay it down and come back to it when I have time. And so I started stitching on paper, and I just started thinking, I really wish I could make this more three-dimensional. And so I thought about, well, what if I cut a hole through my papers and I start layering them? And then that's where all of this came from, is from that. So for the subject matter of my work is always my just my everyday life, my everyday thoughts, my feelings, that sort of thing. But for this show, I wanted to make that a little bit more specific to like the routine of everyday life, the repetition, and that we can find beauty in things that seem ordinary. And so I think that's a good place to start, talking about these pieces. Okay, so this is my sunset series. As you know, the sun sets every single night. We don't always get like a really beautiful sunset, but a lot of times we do, and they're always so different. These are all colors taken from sunsets I've seen over the past year. If you really take the time to look at the colors, you'll see like there's lime green and some crazy grays and just really amazing colors that are in there as well. And when I look at these sunsets, they take me to the place where I saw it. And so, I just think there's magic in a sunset every day. Okay. So this is this is the size that I started working in. And then I was trying to push it to get a little bit larger. And so this next piece on the wall, that was for several years, that was the largest that I would make, a piece that size. But I kept wanting to find a way to make larger work that was more impactful. And I was having trouble with that because the larger the paper, the harder it is to work with. When you're sewing with fabric, any of you that sew know, when you're going up through the cloth, you can kind of poke around to see where your needle's coming through. With paper, I can't do that. You have to like hit that spot perfectly, and I have practiced for years, and I cannot do that. So I have to actually flip my paper over every single stitch to go back through it. So my solution to that was to make bigger pieces by breaking them down into multiple panels. A lot of the pieces I've been working on have been multi-panel pieces. That way I can make a piece as large as I want, but still use the same size of paper. That's easy for me to handle. I don't know how much you want me to talk about subject matter. This piece I feel is maybe a little more special to me than a lot of the other pieces. It's called A Moment of Memory. And for this one, I was just thinking about like the ordinary moments that we have in our day that later on are the things that people remember us by. And my mother passed away in my early 20s. And when I think back when I think back about her, like I remember these very ordinary things. She played piano, and I would, on Saturday mornings, I would always wake up, like she would wake me up by playing piano. And of course I was a teenager and very annoyed, but there was also something really special about that. And so that's what this piece is about. Okay, I wanted to skip this collaborative work because I'm going to come back to that. I ordered a giant roll of watercolor paper, and I decided I'm going to do this piece. This piece took over 100 hours because it was so hard to work with the paper. I actually ended up, it was too big to flip because it kept bending. And so I had to like lay it on the table and kind of crawl under it for every single stitch, like put my head under it. And so this piece was so labor intensive. And then I also decided to weave. So all of these threads are woven here, and all of this in the middle is woven as well. And so I was thinking that would probably be my last big piece on big paper. And then one day I realized I was doing laundry and I was hanging some stuff. I have a laundry line inside of my laundry room. And I thought, what if I pinned up my paper to the laundry line, and then I could stand there and I could use both hands and stitch back and forth. So took it to the laundry room and hung it up. And these 3 pieces were all done in my laundry room. And they went so smoothly and so much easier than trying to work on a flat surface. So yeah, I think you'll see more of my big pieces in the future. With all of my work, if you walk around it, you're going to get a different view depending on where you're at. But I really wanted to come up with something that was even more impactful and that you could walk around and be more, physical with. And so I decided I'm going to try this installation. So for the past year, I've kind of been planning it out. I started with a model on foam core at home, and then I did 2 practice runs of about 7 feet to try to solve any of the problems I thought were gonna come up. And so it turned out just how I wanted it to. I'm really excited about it. This took 43 hours of installation time just here. And probably 25 to 30, I also had someone helping me with nailing, tying knots, and that sort of thing. But it was very time consuming because I did do the weaving of all the threads. So, but I love how when you walk around it, you really do, like, it can almost make you dizzy. You get such a different view, and it looks like it's moving. So, okay, I think let's go back now and talk about the collaborative work. All right, so I know Jen just touched on this, but Joe and I met through the shop 108. We're both artists that sell there, and I had told him, man, I love your stuff so much. I have no idea how it's made. I wish I had some sort of skill, working with wood. And he said, well, guess what? The Northeastern Oklahoma Woodturners Association in Tulsa has learn to turn classes, and you can take it. And I was like, okay, okay, I'll try it, because I love learning like anything and everything. And so I show up the first day having no idea what it's gonna be like. And I walk in, and there's a room full of lathes and grinders and really sharp tools, and I instantly am terrified, and I think, I have no idea. I had no idea what I was getting into. And the first day was a little bit rough, because I realized if you don't put your tool on the wood right, it can throw it at you. It can try to pull it away from you. There were lots of little screams all day. But I thought, okay, it's okay. I'm gonna get through the second day. And then the second day, I started to have like some really like nice cuts. And when you have a nice cut, you get like this beautiful ribbony stuff just flying all over. And that is so addictive. And I loved it from that point forward. And so I would go, the club has lots of opportunities to go learn. Everybody's so helpful. And Joe has really like taken me on and spent so much time working with me and helping me. And so, so I loved that, when Jen offered me this spot, to have my work with Joe's and then to have collaborative work, I was so excited about it, to get to work with him. And it's really funny, just like a few weeks before Jen had called, Joe and I were actually talking about doing some collaborative pieces, because I told him I was really wanting to use thread and wood, but I'm gonna have to be a lot better with making wood before I can do that. So he said, well, I'll make the wood and you make the thread. And so it was perfect timing. So this piece was so fun. Joe did all the work on the wood, and what you don't see is like he also made all of the channels for all of the threading, and then he passed it off to me, and I got to like design, pick the colors for the thread and figure out where I wanted to lay it, and it was just so fun because it's so different than what I usually do. I'm usually measuring everything, and everything's planned out ahead of time, and so it was just really fun to just work intuitively and put this together. So we really love this piece. And then the one back here, and it's just more traditional, I think, traditional wood turning and thread like I usually use. So, and again, that was fun. Joe changed the middle part at the last minute, and I just think it's perfect. I love it. So it turned out really great. And then we have a third piece. Again, he had this beautiful carved sphere, and he was trying to figure out what to do with it. And I asked him if I could take it home and try to figure something out. And after a few different tries that I didn't like, I came up with the chords. So in wood turning, I did bring one of my pieces for an example. So everyone at wood turning had told me, oh, we think, once they saw pictures of my work, they're like, we think we know exactly what you would love. And then they showed me this, and I was like, it's everything I love, right? Little details and this pattern. And so I took a class to make this. which Joe stood at my side for 7 hours talking me through it. Like, he's a really good friend. And so, again, like, this is just beginner level, but I wanted to bring it to show you that it's really, the wood turning has also influenced my thread work. This is the first time I had used a radial grid. On all the other work, I actually plan everything out using like a regular grid. But for this, it's like, oh, there's all like this, it's this new world getting to use a radial grid. So all of these pieces here are using a radial grid. And so, I don't know, they were just so fun to make. And then the cone pieces down here, this all came from that radial grid as well. I was just trying to figure out a way, how could I use this grid and make it three-dimensional? And so this is stitching just on watercolor paper, same materials I'm used to using, just with my radial grid. And I really liked, this was just for fun, again, not for the show. I just wanted to see if I could do it. But once I started making them, I love how if you look at them just like straight on, they look flat. They just look like a flat piece of paper. And then as you walk around them, they really change. And I just kept making more and more. And then I was like, I think these do need to go in the show. And so there they are. When I am making my work, I first sketch it out on a grid, and then I put the grid on my watercolor paper, and I use an awl, and I poke all of my holes. So I have everything planned out. I poke all of my holes where I want them, and then I take the grid off, all that, and then I stitch it. So I have the holes already poked, so it makes it a lot easier to go through it. Yeah. Oh, this is DMC cotton floss. Yeah. Yeah, they really have like the best colors, and it's like proven quality thread, so that's what I stick with. I've stitched on a lot of different papers. The problem is they just tear so easy. And so and even different watercolor papers, like a really beautiful watercolor paper that I would use for painting is actually not even great for this. You actually want like a kind of thick student grade, less quality, like for painting paper for this. So yeah, there are even some watercolor, like I don't have anything in this show, but I have stitched on black watercolor paper, and it's a different brand, and it's even like really hard. Like it tears so much easier. So that's generally the hard part about changing papers. The time it takes to do work varies so much depending on how close the stitches are. If I'm going to do weaving in it, it's going to take a lot longer. Anybody out there work with metallic thread? If I'm going to use metallic thread, I just add that times 10 because it's going to fall apart. It's going to be a nightmare. And so I really have to think, is it worth it? Do I really need that sparkle? Okay. So that can make it a lot longer. And I usually have probably 8 pieces I'm working on at a time, and that way I can have work all in different stages depending, like the planning, I really need to like really think about it, but like once the holes are poked, you know, if I'm tired at the end of the day, I can pick it up and I can stitch it while I watch TV. And so I have all of these pieces in different places, and then I take work with me everywhere, like the big multi-panel piece in the back. I have pieces in there that were stitched at ninja class, at music class, in Mexico, in the car. I mean, doctor's appointments, they go everywhere with me. And so I don't ever keep track of time. And materials, it depends on the size. I know about how many skeins I'm gonna need, but no, I don't really keep track of anything. It's all just kind of here and there.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you so much, Sarah. That was wonderful.